Yo, welcome back to another episode of the Broncos Avenue Podcast. I'm your host, Amir, with my co-host today, Jordan, and a very special guest. We have three-year Denver Broncos offensive tackle Calvin Anderson to join the podcast today. Super excited to have you on today. How's training? How's the offseason? How's life, man?
It's been good, man. I came out to California as I usually do in the off season to train, and supposed to be here for the weather, but the weather's been up and down. So I'm hoping that the sun comes back. But it's been good so far, man.
It's great to hear. Great to hear you're doing good. I've seen you've been doing like a lot of traveling lately. You want to tell us about that and how that's been going? It's super awesome that you've been kind of going around all around the country, and seems like even out of the country as well.
Yeah, man. Every off season, I feel like I try to travel. I mean, I like to travel a lot too. I don't mind flying, and life is short, man. There's so much of the world still to see, so I try to see as much as I can in the time that I have to see it. So, next trip out of the country. TBD, probably me and G's leaving somewhere. So we're gonna go on like a trip. That's my guy. But we'll see.
All right, sounds awesome, and good to have you on the pod today. We've had like 5 straight defensive players on the pod, so it's finally good to start talking about some offense today. We've had PJ Locke, Caden Stearns, and now Calvin Anderson. So it feels like we've collected all the Infinity Stones for Texas alumni. So it's awesome to have you on today. But to kick things off, what was it like getting the block for Russell Wilson this past season? Obviously, the big superstar that you guys traded for, all those picks, and just being around him in general. Can you kind of describe that aura that was like, from day one in training camp till getting to, start on the offensive line and play with him in game?
Yeah, let me first say, man, y'all got another Infinity Stone to collect because they just signed my boy, Lil Jordan Humphreys, man. So he was my
I already hit him up, man.
I got to get him on the pod. Russ, man. First and foremost, I think it was pretty surreal. I remember where I was literally out here and actually in California with Garett when the news broke that we got Russ, and Russ is a leader before anything else. I mean, obviously he's a man of God and he has all his personal stuff, but I think from a football standpoint in the locker room and in the building, he's a leader. That's the first thing you realize about him, and he has that energy, he has that aura. As soon as you're in the building with him and you're on the field with him, in the classroom, learning plays with him, he's a leader. So, I really like and respect that about him. And I think he continued to carry himself as a leader, no matter what the situation was during the season. Obviously, not the season that any of us wanted, but I think that his leadership never wavered, and that's something I can really respect about Russ. A lot more personable than people think. I obviously had the time and the opportunity to spend a good amount of time outside of the building with Russ. And, he's a genuine person. I think that goes unnoticed. It flies under the radar because he gets a lot of flack for his play. And, people say whatever they want about Russ. But I'd say that Russ is a very personable guy. And, I appreciate that he sticks to and remains to being who he is, regardless of, the feedback he gets from other people. He's not looking to impress anybody. He's looking to take care of his family and play the best football he can. So I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah. Like when you say that, it brings back the memories for all the season. And even now in the off season, everybody just bringing out different type of rumors about Russ, how he's a bad leader, the stuff going on within the organization, and talking about how his fundraiser, his foundation is basically a scam. It just seems like every angle they've attacked him. And, it's just, I give him his props. He's kind of taking it to the chin, and he's like, just moving the way how he's supposed to move, and he hasn't let it affect him or anything like that. So I commend him for that.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah. But going into last season wasn't a season that we all wanted. We all had high expectations. It didn't go the way we wanted. A lot of big changes happened so far in the offseason. Have you had a chance to meet any of the new coaches? And how do you feel about the new coaching staff?
Yeah, I think they're in off-season mode right now, so they're probably waiting to do all of the team meetings and interactions with the players, and they're waiting for that until everybody's in Denver probably. But I've seen a lot of the moves, and I think Denver is moving in the right direction. I think George is a good leader of an organization. And so I think that, especially from a player personnel standpoint, he's going to get the right players in the building. And then, obviously with Sean coming, a a lot to be excited about yet again in Denver, right? So, you know, we'll see what moves are left to be made. We got free agency starting this week, tomorrow actually, with tampering. So we'll see what moves are left to be made. But I think it's an exciting time in Denver.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want to talk about this photo that went around. I'm not too sure if you've seen it. It has to do with our divisional rival, Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not too sure if you've seen it. Actually, Instagram follower sent it to me, and it went a little viral on Twitter and Instagram. I want to pop it up on the screen right now. So it was basically the Kansas City Chiefs in practice, practicing with what looked like trash cans with Broncos offensive lineman on there. You can see you on the very far right there. What do you got to say about that? I don't know if you've seen that, but they're doing us a little dirty, man.
Yeah, well, good to know that we're motivating another team, man. I can't speak too much to it. I don't know what the motivation is, so I won't make any prejudgments. But
yeah. Yes, yeah, that's crazy. I'm not gonna lie, I can't stand the Chiefs. But Calvin, you came into the league undrafted. You know, you obviously had a chip on your shoulder. Can you give us, your first initial reaction? You know, when you found out you were gonna become a Bronco.
Yeah, I remember it was week 5. Actually, I went to the Patriots first after the draft, and I was really shocked I didn't get drafted, but you know, I had like 10 or 12 teams trying to sign me right after the draft. So, you know, I had to kind of focus on that as opposed to being upset about not being drafted. Ended up picking the Patriots and went there. And after a few days, they were actually signing a former Bronco, Garett Bolles, here to play tackle. So they signed him and cut me. I was the only rookie offensive tackle that had no guaranteed money. So they cut me. I was claimed off waivers by the Jets. So I went to New York. And funny enough, like a week later, Garett Bolles retired. So he had signed a deal, then he retired, which was crazy. But I had a good preseason with the Jets. I was balling. I was playing a tackle and guard. Actually, that was the only time I ever played guard. Rookie year, trying to make it. But I had a good preseason games, and then it was the last year, I think, or maybe the second to last year, that practice squad players were able to make elevated salary. So I was making like active roster salary to be on the practice squad because there were other teams that wanted me. So I stayed doing that for 4 weeks, which is crazy. I remember that my first NFL paycheck, I was tripping out. So I did that for 4 weeks, and then the Broncos called. Actually, Big Elway called my agent and said, you know, we want to sign Calvin. And they were one of the teams that was trying to get me after the draft. So they offered me a 2-year deal. I came. Rest is history, man. I spent that year on the inactive list, which is kind of like a redshirt year that year for me.
Yeah.
I never suited up for the games, but I was on the active roster, and then I was practicing every day against Vaughn, which is still a surreal experience for me. I remember the first day I got to Denver, the very first day we stood up for practice, and I'm on the practice field, and I'm like, yo, that's Vaughn Miller. Like, what? And I learned a lot. I learned a lot playing against Vaughn, man. He really did help me. I remember we saw him preseason last year when we played against the Bills. And I told him that I was like, man, like, I really wouldn't be here without you, brother. Like, I appreciate you. And Vaughn actually had a locker right across from mine. So anyway, so I did that for my first year, and then going into my second year, it was like, okay, like obviously every year you're trying to take a step up, because if you don't, the league will age you out. And so my second year, I was trying to develop a role for myself. Obviously, I had Mike Munchak, who I still think is such a great coach. Happy to have played with him. Still waiting to see if he's going to come back to the league at some point. But maybe I'll call him and ask him after this free agency stuff. But yeah, second year, again, I was playing well in the preseason. I was playing both tackles, left and right. I had never played right before my first year. So I was developing as, you know, a guy who could play both. And Munch helped me with that a lot. And ended up making the team second year again. And so, but that year I had made the team, and I was supposed to be like, you know, the swing option, but, you know, I was young. I had never played in a real NFL game before. So, you know, there was question marks, I think, from the coaching staff about, is he ready, or, you know, all that. You know, I was young, I was athletic, but I was raw. And so the Raiders week comes. I think it was week 10, maybe. But Raiders week comes, and we had some injuries, obviously, as you guys probably know. And it was my turn to play. So it was my first game starting, and I actually started right next to Graham. I called Graham yesterday. Obviously I heard the news he got released, and reminded him, like, dude, you were there for my very first NFL game. Like, thank you so much for being veteran presence and all that. So I'm sure Graham will be good wherever he goes. But so I played that first game against the Raiders. I had Max Crosby that game actually before he got paid, but he was still cold. It was his second year too. We were both the same draft class, and when I look back, I played relatively well, but it was still a difficult. Like you're being compared to people who play and who have started a lot, and it was my very first game. I didn't allow a sack, but I still, I had some iffy play at the end. But I was happy with it because I was like, man, I got my feet wet, and it was my first time starting. And it wasn't like I was prepared to start the whole year. It just all of a sudden happened because we had some injuries. So I played my first game. That went well. And then a few weeks later, actually, Garrett's my boy, by the way. I was actually living with Garett at the time. Mm-hmm. That's a conversation for another day, I guess. But Garett had gotten the flu or he got some sickness or whatever. Maybe it was food poisoning, some sickness when we played Carolina that year. And I was the backup at left. There was nobody else that was back and left up. So Garett went down the morning of the game. So that's what threw everybody off because he got sick the night before. And in the morning, they were like, yeah, he can't play. So on the bus going to the stadium to get ready to play, I get a call from Munch. And he's like, hey, did you hear the news? And I was like, no, I didn't hear anything. He was like, well, your boy he's down. He's got a stomach bug. He probably ate something bad. Were you ready to play? And I was like, what? In the NFL, listen, in the NFL, if you're not the guy who's starting that week, it's not like you're getting the reps or that, you're going game plan for you. It's the game plan for somebody else. And so he told me, he was like, yeah, we need you to play. And this is like 30 minutes before we're going to get to the stadium to get suited up, to do our warm-ups and get ready to play. So I had to flip a switch, but I remember it was like a defining moment in my career because I made a decision, and I had a decision to make. Either I can choose to make excuses for myself and say, well, here's 1,000 reasons why, I won't play well. Like, here's all the reasons I can give for why I wouldn't have been prepared for today. Or I can just make a decision to make this like one of my defining moments. Like, okay, you have an opportunity to do something incredible. It's an opportunity to, make a real impact, make a real impact in your career and for this team. So I chose the latter of the two, which I'm still to this day proud of. And, that was my first game starting at left tackle. And I played well. I had Brian Burns that game, who also was very, very good and still is. And it was a good game, man. And we won the game too. So that made it, even better. And I think that was the day that I earned that coaching staff's respect because, again, this is like 30 minutes and I'm an undrafted free agent. Like, I'm not the guy that people were hedging their bets on or anything. There were so many reasons why that could have gone wrong and that I could have been expected to fail, but I just didn't. And I chose not to fail. I chose to face the opposition and overcome it. And I'm glad I did. So I ended up playing really well that game. Those are the two games I started in 2020. And the next year I got tendered and I was a restricted tender. So I stayed on the team, made the team again. I was actually competing the next year for the starting spot with Bobby Massey, OG. He's not there anymore, but he's an OG. And I thought I was going to get a real chance to start that year, but they went with the seasoned veteran, which I understand. So I was backup swing again. I swing in both sides, but I was the first one up at right or left, and then ended up playing 3 games that year. The first game I played was the Cowboys game, and we ended up smacking the Cowboys. That was such a good game. And that was probably the best. That was my best game to date at that time was playing against the Cowboys. I remember that was like I was playing left tackle that game, and I had Randy Gregory actually, who's now our teammate, and that was at the time my best game. Like he didn't get any sacks, he had no pressures. Like it was one of those like lockdown games. And I played 2 games after that. I played the Cowboys game, I played the Eagles game, I played the Chargers game, and I was just getting into a rhythm. And then Chargers game, obviously, I went down with the injury, one of the D linemen fell on my leg, and that was tough. But so I was out for the rest of the year, and then this past year, last year, I re-signed on a 1-year deal, fully guaranteed to come in and compete again. And then we had a coaching staff change with Hackett getting hired, and we had new O-line coach, whole new staff, and it was different. We're going to run a little bit of a different offense. Obviously, we got superstar quarterback Russ, so a lot of changes, and it didn't go how I thought it was going to go, and that's for reasons that I maybe don't understand. But I'm a professional. I know that, and so I found out what my role was supposed to be. I thought I was going into the season I was going to be the starter at right tackle, but for whatever reason that was changed at the last minute. And so, I reverted to, the years of experience I had being ready to play at any time. And, I waited till my number was called. And when my number was called, I played. And, I'm happy with how I played. And, I left it all out there for Denver. And, we're going into free agency tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. But I'm definitely not ruling out Denver. If Denver would like to make something work, I would love to keep bleeding and sweating for Denver. I'd love to hear. So.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that. Obviously free agency kicking off tomorrow. Has there been any conversations with you, George Payton, your agent, Bob, potentially coming back here? What does that kind of look like? Because I know I'm speaking for all Broncos country when we want you back here.
Yeah, I mean, there's always conversations. It would have to be the right situation. I'm at a point in my career where I'm like, I got married this year, which is crazy. I got married this year.
Yeah, congrats.
I'm thinking of starting a family soon. So I got to start thinking about things that are a lot bigger than just me and what I might want, what my intentions might be. And so it's got to be the right situation. Now I know I've proven that I can start. And so I want to show in an extended period of time that I can start game after game and have people prepping for me, watch my film, and still be able to perform. And I showed that, I think, in a microcosm this year with the six games that I did start. I played against some good guys. I played Chandler Jones, Frank Clark, Josh Allen. It wasn't like I was playing against scrubs. And so, I'm ready to go somewhere or be somewhere where a team believes day in and day out I can be that guy.
Yeah, you spoke earlier about Mike Munchak and about him possibly getting back into coaching and everything like that. Obviously he did wonders for you guys on the offensive line, made you guys, jump in your game. Can you tell us a little bit about his coaching style and just any stories you have about Mike Munchak?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike Munchak he's a legend. Obviously a Hall of Fame player, and arguably Hall of Famer as a coach too. And the first thing you realize when you're getting coached by Munch is that he speaks from experience because he played so long. So it's not even just that he played, but he played at a really high level. So he knows what it's like to succeed and ride those ebbs and flows of being good and then not being good. And, he knows what that feels like. And so he garners a lot of respect, I think, right out of the gate with that. But Mike also takes pretty different approaches depending on the guy he's coaching, which I always appreciated because he recognizes that not every player is the same, especially as offensive linemen. We have different body types. Some guys are super fast, some guys are super big, some guys are strong. Everybody has different aptitudes. And I loved that Munch would always, when he was coaching one player, he would identify their specific aptitudes, how they approach the game, wherever they were at mentally, he'd meet them there and then coach from there. And I appreciated that. Not every coach does that. Not every coach is able to do that. When we spent time together, he was very specific about the things that he saw in my game, that he felt like, here's how you can tailor your game to being elite in this league against these players. And then if you talk to somebody like Garett, or if you talk to somebody like Quinn or whoever, then he can tailor what he's saying in his message to them. And so he can help every individual player improve their game. So I really appreciate that about Munch, man. One thing about Munch, though, is funny enough, all my O-line brothers will remember this. Every single day, especially my second year in the league, I would always come in, and this is COVID now, so we were spread out, so we weren't sitting next to each other anymore. But I would always come in, and I had like a bunch of snacks and a bunch of food that I was eating during the meeting. So I would eat in the mornings. I would come in, and I would always get my cinnamon toast crunch. I get like 3 or 4 of them. because I always wake up late. So I'll come in, I'll eat like 4 Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And Munch is an older dude, so he, his hearing is a little, everything get a little suspect when you get older, and he knows that. So we would be in the meetings, and I would always either be eating my Cinnamon Toast Crunch in the morning or chips and stuff before we go to practice. And so Munch would be right in the middle of, he's coaching, whatever, we're looking at the film, and I'm in the back. It's silent, right? Like, we give a lot of respect to coach when he's talking. It's silent, and I got my bag of chips, and I'm popping my bag of chips open. And obviously, pop a bag of chips open in a silent room, it makes a pretty loud noise. Yeah. So this, every single time, he would just stop the meeting. Literally, I had to learn to just not take any food in there. He would stop the meeting and just look at me and be like, "No, go ahead. You just eat your food, man. This is your time now." And everybody used to fire me up because I would always bring in the food. Everybody else would eat like at lunchtime or at breakfast time, but I was always bringing my food into the meetings, man. So he used to give me a hard time about that.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's hilarious. We're hearing a lot of these stories, like kind of in the meetings. I know, I believe it was either Caden Stearns or PJ Log was talking about how Pastor Tan falls asleep during meetings and stuff. Sometimes is joking around how he has narcolepsy. It's just funny hearing these stories for sure.
Yeah. Young boys, man, they be falling asleep.
And it's crazy because he's on pace to be one of the greater DBs, in this sport of all time. And to hear these stories, it's hilarious. And he obviously has an incredibly awesome gift. I want to talk about you just from talking to you these first 20 minutes or so. You seem like a very smart person, and just like learning about you ever since I've been following you. You signed here in Denver. You're obviously very well known. You're ambassador with Rubik's Cube. Just solving those Rubik's cubes and stuff like really quick. And where did this kind of interest stem from? Because we don't really see this too often in sports. And would you actually say that level of focus and IQ, solving those Rubik's cubes and whatnot, can correlate to your game as an NFL player in some ways?
Yeah, 2-part question. I'll answer both. So I think where the interest came from is I was in middle school. I was like 13 at the time, I think. And one of my friends brought a Rubik's Cube to practice. It was one of my friends on the football team, and he could solve the Rubik's Cube. It wasn't like he was fast or anything, but he could solve it. And I've always been a really competitive person. My dad was military, Army, 23 years, full Burt Colonel, retired 2019. He's also a minister and a doctor. And, my dad's shoes to fill are like, probably bigger than this screen I'm showing on right now. But I was always, growing up, and I think I get it from him, competitive. So everything I did, I was competing to win. That's kind of how he raised us, me and my sisters. And so when I came across this, it presented as a challenge that I had not overcome yet. And I wasn't faced with it before. But now that I was faced with it, I told myself, I want to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube. I got to be able to do it. And so he taught me, actually, one of my friends taught me. It took probably a few months, but he taught me like until I got it like where I could do it by myself and not need to ask questions. So he taught me how to do it. And then once he taught me how to do it, I was enamored with it, and I just kept going. Like, I kept solving it, and I was kind of like interested in getting faster. And the Rubik's Cube is an interesting puzzle. There's one end goal, right? That you're trying to solve the Rubik's Cube. You go from all the mixed up colors to all the colors being solved. But I think it's 43 quintillion or some crazy number like that of ways to mix up the cube. So every time you do the cube, it can legitimately be a different experience every single time. So anyway, I stuck with it, and I got a lot better over the years. And then when I got into high school, actually, the local newspaper, my sophomore year, I was a starting right tackle for the Georgetown Eagles. And we went to state that year and lost, which was terrible. But we had won every game before that. We went undefeated. And so while we were in the playoffs, the local news media is always trying to find little stories to do. And they noticed that I was bringing my Rubik's Cube to all the games, because I would do the Rubik's Cube, and it would be like a way for me to decompress and calm my mind in a way. Because I think I've always been like a thinker. Like, I think all day long, and in some ways, that's like my Achilles heel, because I overthink a lot of things. So, which we can talk about that later, because that's a funny reason for why I think me and Garett are so close. But I was always using the Rubik's Cube as a way to decompress before the game, because it helped me focus. And so they did a story when I was in high school about the Rubik's Cube and all that stuff, which was cool. I was doing it. I wasn't doing it that fast though, but I was doing it, so it became a story. So then when I committed to Rice, somewhere in my Rice stuff right now. When I committed to Rice, every freshman had to do a talent show. And all the guys at Rice knew that I could do the Rubik's Cube. So they were like, you got to mix it up. It got to be something else. Like, we already know about that, Can't just come up here and do the Rubik's Cube. So I spent, I was sitting down with my granddad one day, and my granddad, me and my grandparents were pretty close. And I used to be over there all the time in their house. They lived close to us. My granddad always did Sudoku puzzles. I don't know if you guys have ever done those. So he always did Sudoku puzzles. And one day I was sitting down, and he was a math guy too. I think that's where I get my math side from. But we were sitting down one day, and I was looking at him doing the Sudoku puzzle, and I realized it can be kind of similar to the Rubik's Cube if you think about the fact that on each side of a Rubik's Cube, you have 9 squares. And in each square of a Sudoku puzzle, you have 9 smaller squares, and you're trying to get the numbers 1 through 9 in that square, and then concurrently get 1 through 9 across the 3 squares horizontally, and then 1 through 9 across the 3 squares horizontally. So, vertically. So, if you think about the Rubik's Cube like that, there is always a way, if you number the cube like a Sudoku puzzle. So each side you number 1 through 3, 1 through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you number the cube like that, then you can always correlate one side to another side with numbers. So anyway, without boring you with the math stuff, this led to me trying to find out a way to solve the Rubik's Cube without looking, and which is called a blindfolded solve in Rubik's language or terminology. So anyway, I came up with that with this method or whatever you call it. And then when I got to Rice, I did the talent show. I actually did an Obama impression, which I think I probably can't do that well anymore. But I held a press conference, which I answered questions about whatever was going on at that time. I think there was some Beyonce thing going on. So I answered questions about Beyonce and a bunch of different stuff as Obama. I was holding the press conference. And then at the end, it was, it wasn't that long, but it was 5 or 6 minutes, whatever. And at the end, I asked somebody in the crowd, I threw the Rubik's Cube out to the crowd, had them mix it up. There's a bunch of my teammates. And then they threw it back. And I said, okay, I'm going to solve this, but I'm going to solve it blindfolded. And then y'all can time me. And so then I turned around, I solved it. Boom, I put it out. Everybody freaked out. We still have a video of it. I got to find it. It's in the Rice archive somewhere. But yeah, so that's kind of that's kind of how it developed into college. And then every year in college, they did a new story every year about me solving the Rubik's Cube and whatever. And it grew and grew. And then, when I got to the NFL, obviously it grew and eventually grew into a partnership with me and Rubik. So kind of a cool story. But yeah, I do think, to answer your second question, that there are aspects of solving the cube, or maybe the critical thinking that you have to go through to solve the cube, that help with your ability to focus. Specifically, my ability to focus on the field. I think if me doing the cube allows my hands, and it takes a certain part of my brain away from the relaxing part, from a relaxing experience. I can focus on whatever I need to do while my whatever other side of my brain is focusing on the cube. That's kind of how I separate it. And I do think that it helps my ability to, when I'm on the field, just identify different patterns that you might recognize. So when you're doing film study, when you're trying to look at X's and O's, it helps with pattern recognition, because the pattern recognition is the exact same. I think the idea of recognizing, okay, when this is going on, this is simultaneously going on, and that helps you, I think, recognize tendencies. And as a tackle, a lot of times you're trying to look at things that will give you indications that there's a blitz coming. So you look at safety rotation, or you try to see what a defense is aligned in that might indicate that they're bringing somebody off the edge or bringing linebackers up the middle. So in that way, I do think it helps. But I think, unfortunately, that's very specific to me. But I do think there's other ways that could help other people. It's just, whatever works for individuals. But it works for me.
Yeah, that's an insane story. Hey, if you can, please find that video you solving that blindly. That's outrageous.
I got videos of me solving it blindfolded online, but there's a video of me doing that press conference somewhere at Rice Archives.
That is crazy. So earlier you talked about, being able to practice along Von Miller. You talked about you played your first games against I think you said Chandler Jones, Brian Burns, and Max Crosby, and all these guys. Can you give us your welcome to the NFL moment?
Welcome to the NFL moment. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. Outside of playing, when I came in the first day to the Broncos and I lined up and I was literally across the line from Von Miller. That felt like a welcome to the NFL moment for me, because in that practice I realized what it was like to go against And I still feel like Vaughn is the greatest at his position ever, the greatest ever. But I realize what it's like to go against an elite NFL defensive end. You know, he's an outside back or whatever you want to call him, but somebody who's elite. I had gone against good college players that won the first round, all that, but especially when I was at Texas. But to go against somebody who's elite out of that class, out of that group, that was the first time I really experienced that. But maybe when I gave up this year, I gave up my first official NFL sack. So maybe that was another moment where I was like, oh man, like, you know, it's just humbling, like maybe just another humbling moment. Because I think the Von Miller moment was my welcome to the NFL moment.
Okay.
That's awesome. That's someone definitely I would love. That's my dream. That's my favorite player of all time. So to line up against him, exactly, the GOAT for sure. So I want to talk a little bit about number 3. Obviously, a tough season for him in 2022. He's like Jordan mentioned, he's just drawn a lot of critics and league-wide haters that have constantly bashed him whenever they got the chance. And it's this, that every week. It's Russell Wilson a player, Russell Wilson a person. What type of season do you envision for him in this offense in 2023? Kind of bouncing back from all this, it's honestly going to probably go down as one of the greater comebacks of all time at the quarterback position if he can pull it off.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about if he can pull it off. Russ is poised to take advantage of exactly a moment in a situation like this. They have like a saying, pressure makes diamonds. And I think, Russ has already proven that he's a diamond. But I think this pressure that he's undergoing, a lot of people could not manage. Could not handle. They might fold under that pressure. But I think this is going to refine him as a diamond so much more than it would other people because, Russ allows himself to take on the burden of responsibility. And I think the reciprocal of that on the other end is he is going to charge himself with the responsibility of bringing Denver back. So, and I think that people question like his actual abilities if he can still play at a high level. And there's no question that he can still throw. He might not be able to run as fast as he did at 20, whatever he was when he first got in the league, but he can still run. He can still maneuver out of the pocket better than most. There's things that he can still do. And he's still a crazy leader. And he can throw the deep ball. So I see all this stuff, man. It's just like, I feel like it's a little messed up because, Russ is still an elite level quarterback. And, I can't wait to see what this year brings because I know he's still capable. So, we still saw that he was capable, especially in practice and stuff. So I would hedge my bets on Russ being the guy who takes all this to the chin and then, sticks it to everybody in the league this year.
Yeah, during the season, when he was really like getting a lot of hate from just everybody, analysts, fans, Twitter, just everybody on every angle. There was a moment in the season where it was Jerry Jeudy, I think KJ Hamler, Garett Bolles, and a whole bunch of other guys, kind of spoke out for him. Was there like a change in the locker room after they did that to before they did that? Like, did Russ feel more comfortable?
Yeah, I think Russ felt like his boys had his back. And so, I know Russ has been through a lot in his life. And I think that reassurance was probably very empowering to him. I remember that day, actually, that it happened. And, we were all trying to let Russ know, like, we got you, brother. Like, we're not the national media or whoever else is trying to trash you. Like we see the value you bring and we respect and appreciate that. And I think that reassurance for him was, in my hope, it was very empowering. It seemed like it was.
Yeah, I don't know if you I'm sure you saw the press conference where he was tearing up, just talking to the media. That hurt, man. That because like you watch her, and I'm sure for you, the guy who's literally blocking for him, and you're there to protect him, and for him to take that backlash, and he's a guy who's always been smiling, let's ride, and every press conference being the upbeat person, and that day that sucked to see our QB1 kind of get emotional there in front of the media. That was tough.
Yeah, it's tough to see, but it was real though, and it was a vulnerable moment, I know, for him. But I think watch out.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but he's not playing. He's not playing.
Yeah. I really think this season everything is going to be completely different. We got new coaching staff in there, and I think Russ is determined, and I think he's ready just to go and unleash. Yeah. With that being said, I want to ask you, so far since you've been a Bronco, what is your favorite, moment, funniest thing or anything like that that's happened since you've been Bronco?
Favorite moment was decimating the Cowboys in 2021. That was such a good feeling because I'm from Texas. I was born in Austin. I went to Rice, Houston. I went to UT Austin and back in Austin. Like I'm Texas through and through.
Yeah.
And everybody in Texas is diehard Cowboys fans.
Man.
Everyone. It's like a religion out there. And I remember going into that game, all they were talking about is, it's just going to be the Cowboys offense against, Broncos defense because we had a good defense and the Cowboys had explosive offense, whatever. They weren't talking anything about our offense. And then we put up 30 points on their head, and I was like, and I remember during the game, like they were just shook. They didn't know what was going on. Like their defense, especially, they were like, couldn't believe what was happening. And that was my favorite moment, I think, since being in the league. It's like just a really good team win all around, like all different phases of the game. Very good team win.
Yeah. I remember just going into the game, like, because my mom is a diehard Cowboys fan, and I just remember, like this, just the talk of, oh man, they riding hot, man. It's gonna be an easy win. And I remember just like watching the game in the kickoff. We're up 30-0. Tim Patrick hit the double move on Diggs. You see Melvin Gordon and all those guys scoring touchdowns. Caden Stearns getting the pick. It was definitely that game had to definitely be top 5 for me. That game was crazy.
Yeah, it was wild, man.
Yeah, Calvin, I know you. This is a good time to bring it up. I know you mentioned in the past, the kind of reason for your common use of the kind of the shush emoji you use a lot. It's kind of been I wouldn't say your brand, but I know you use that emoji a lot. I think that's badass. It's kind of your way of silencing the doubters. You've said before in press conferences that you feel that people have always counted you out, and you've been an underdog your whole life. What is it like carrying that persona with you as you aim to eventually become a starting tackle in the league?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disassociate it from my brand. I think it actually is a part of my brand at this point.
That's awesome.
And I think it comes from exactly what you said. Always, I was never the person who was believed to be the guy who was going to make it all happen. And aside from that being my internal belief and the belief of the people that care about me, when I was a high school recruit, and I'll just talk about football for a second, but when I was a high school recruit, I was 2-star, everybody's got their own version of what that looks like for them being counted out. But, I didn't even actually become a 2-star until I was on that All-State team. And that was mostly because of the success that was going on around me. So I was lucky and fortunate to have one coach who was at Rice. His name's Ronnie Van Clark. I'll never forget him to this day. But he came and he saw, I was 200 and I wouldn't even say 15. I was 210 playing right tackle in high school football in Texas. So already being an offensive lineman at 210 doesn't even sound right. But I was longer. I was lanky. I wasn't overly strong. I was always fast, always quick. That was always my thing. But, I wasn't like the prototype tackle build, nothing close to it. So he saw me, though, and he saw the potential, and, he thought I moved well. And I think it was him believing in me that, got me to Rice. And that's why I was still committed to Rice my senior year. My senior year, I had a bunch of other offers, a bunch of other bigger D1 offers. And, I'm lucky to be a loyal person. I didn't even listen to them. I didn't take the phone call. I said, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere else but Rice. Still glad I did that. And I went to Rice, and, my first year at Rice, I was 235. At tackle, freshman, and then I slowly gained weight over my time. I was 235, then 260, then 280, and then my last year there I was maybe 285, 290, which was my 4th year at Rice, but my 3rd year playing. And then when I got to Texas, that was the first time I had gotten close to being 300. I was at 300 at one point, but then kind of was below that. I was probably playing at 295-ish for the whole last Texas season. And then it was the same thing when I got to the NFL. My pro day on trying out for the NFL, I was 292. I was, again, really fast, but I wasn't like, oh, people looked at me and saw, yeah, this guy's gonna make it. Like that was never me. And I got to, when I went undrafted, I got to the Jets, it was the same thing. But I think when people watch me play and they saw what I was made of, like what I had inside, that's undeniable. And I think a lot of people could see and feel that. And seeing and feeling is not just, with your eyes and with your senses, but there was something else I think people recognized that I brought. There was another aura that I bring that I think people are very sensitive to, and especially good football players and coaches. I think they recognize that. So I think that is what's been leading me to be successful, is something that is much bigger and greater than having all the athletic traits or having all the physical traits. And I think I overcame not having some of them and not having a lot of them, maybe. And I'm still doing that to today. So whenever you see me throw up the shush emoji, like, just know that comes with a lot of emotion and a lot of energy, because it means something to me. Like, it means something to me every single year when I'm always considered like, oh, I don't know if he can, even still in the league. Like, even with me playing, it's still like, can he really do it? Like, he was undrafted. Can he really stack up? And that's why it's just a shush, because the shush means so much more than just it's like, oh, it sounds like it means so much more. There's a whole book of explanation to that shush, and so I'm adding on to that book every single year, every single day. Even with me training, you should see the way I train out here, and I can't wait for this free agency period to be done, so I can know what's the next move, and add the next chapter to that shush, because it'll take some time to read, you know what I mean? The explanation for that shush. So yeah, I do think it's a part of my brand. It means a lot. And to carry that persona is to be authentically who I am. So it doesn't feel like I'm carrying something. It feels like I am who I am. And it's an external expression of that. So
yeah, that's a really good mentality to have. Like, that's a lot of people can't really figure that out. That's really good mentality to have. I will say, growing up for you, obviously, you're a tackle. What were some tackles that you kind of, just wanted to model your game after, or, just some of your favorite at the position?
Yeah, I mean, once I got into watching O-line play, I liked Joe Staley's film, because I felt like Joe Staley had some intangibles too, but I felt like he played similar to how I wanted to play: athletic, fast, getting under people, and he wasn't like the oversized tackle. He was more of a smaller, athletic tackle that was agile. So I always appreciated that in tackles. I even like watching Joe Thomas. I always felt like it was insane that Joe Thomas could take a directly vertical set at just about 300 pounds and still play so well. I always thought that was incredible. Still to this day, I can't believe how he does. You watch some of his films, like, he's not taking an angle set to make it easy or nothing. He's just maybe licking 300 when he's playing. And he's taking a directly vertical set one-on-one on the island with the best rushers and still handling them. I always thought that was crazy. But then there's some OGs too, like I don't want to say his name wrong. I trained with him. He played 20 years in the NFL, and I trained with him when I was coming out of the draft, and I was at the NFLPA game, because that's the game I went to. What's that guy's name, man? I have him written down. I'm gonna forget his name, but he played, I think, for the Chargers a long time, for like 20 years. And he was an undersized tackle, and he played both tackles. He was insane. He's considered one of the best. I also like guys who currently played in the league. Like, I always liked watching Tyron Smith's film, because he was just an athletic freak, and I felt like he set the standard at the position for like a long time. And I know he's getting older now, but Tyron is still, I think, one of the most athletically gifted tackles I've ever seen play. Even when he was coming out of USC, I know he was playing right tackle, but he was just so athletically gifted, fast, and then just locking boys up. I'm trying to think. I think there was one other one I wanted to mention. I always looked up to. Is he still in the league right now? He was playing to the Cowboys last year, maybe. Was he still in the league?
Who is it?
Jason Peters.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if did he play for the Cowboys last year?
Jason Peters, yeah,
he did.
Okay, he played guard. He played guard or something, right?
Yeah.
Jason Peters obviously is like an undrafted legend, so all undrafted linemen should be watching, looking up to Jason Peters, in my opinion. But yeah, to take an undrafted start and turn it into a Hall of Fame career, that doesn't happen, man. So those are some of the guys.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good list to have there. I want to talk a little bit about Garett Bolles before we wrap things up. Obviously there's some stuff flying around during the offseason. You're always hearing about constant rumors with the Broncos. We heard a little bit about from two members of the Broncos media that was circulating a little bit. One of them being Benjamin Albright, claiming that he was being shopped a few weeks ago. Do you know if there's any validity or truth to this claim? If you've heard anything about that, and speaking of Bolles being one of your guys.
Yeah, my understanding is that there's none of that going on, and it's rumors are tough, man, because I think people downplay the impact it has on players when they see stuff in the media, and especially from so-called reputable sources. It's like even the stuff going around right now about our receivers, like I think that stuff really does weigh on the guys. And the idea of being like what we all loved about playing in college is that there's this sense of loyalty that you have. Like you play for a school and you represent that school forever. And unfortunately, it's not the same in the NFL because of the business aspect. So you want to feel like, okay, well, I'm on this team and that's the team I'm on. Like that's who I represent. That and they represent me. And there's a two-way protection that we have over each other. But anyway, I think especially Garett, Garett's an emotional guy, and I've always loved that about him. And I think that seeing stuff like that, especially when it's not true, it's just like mentally messes. Sometimes it can play with your emotions. So So from my understanding, and I've been pretty thick in trying to understand what's going on for agency, obviously for my own situation, I don't think any of that is happening. I think Garett is the long-term option to left tackle still.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. That's great.
Yeah, and I just wanted to branch off that question as well. Obviously, Garett Bolles, being one of your best friends on this team, what is it like been getting to play with them? I know during the training camp, Billy Turner, Tom Compton were down, which means you guys were playing you're getting first team reps and on the O line at the same time. Opposite sides of the line. What is that like? And just getting to play with your buddy there in here in Denver.
Yeah, playing opposite sides. Something me and Garett have talked about literally since my first year here. It was nice, man. Like I think both of our goals were at some point for that to be the case and that we could play, start these games together, and still have hope that could be the case. But it was cool, man. It was I think something that we had already envisioned. So that now that it was playing out in real time, that was a fun experience. Garett is Garett's a very particular person, but he maybe he's an acquired taste for some people. But I think if he did more stuff like this, where he was doing an interview where people could kind of see who he is, I think a lot of people would really enjoy Garett because he's a very likable person. He's like how you imagine like these big teddy bear. Like when people describe big people that are teddy bears, like that's kind of how Garett is. Like he's just a lovable person, loves his family. And he loves real hard. He's like a really good friend. But yeah, it was cool playing together, man. I wish we could have played more games together, but it was cool while it lasted.
Yeah, that's dope. To have a friendship like that on the team and everything like that, that's really good. Because, a lot of guys sometimes at the same position sometimes they compete too much and they don't get along, but it's really good to see two guys at tackle, just being able to get along and things like that.
Yeah, it was funny. Like when I first came in, that's the thought I had, is that we both play the same position. So I'm not sure why this guy is being so inviting of me. And we still talk about it to this day. I think it's rare that people at the same exact. I was playing left tackle when I first got here. I was learning right, but I was playing left. I was the back of the left, and it's I think usually rare that people get along. Especially like when I played against the Cowboys game, I was having a lot of success that year, and Garett was injured. And he was like my biggest supporter. Like called me right after the game. I knew you were gonna blast that boy. Like he just like, and I think that part is rare. So I've always appreciated G for that, man. He just genuinely wants to see me succeed, and I think the same about him. And so I think that along with our loyalty and stuff, like some of the shared characteristics we have, have led to us just becoming so close.
Yeah, that's awesome because we're always, from the players that we've had on here, saying nothing but great things about him. And I heard about Justin Sternad. We had Justin Sternad a few days ago, and he was talking about how on the team flights and stuff, he's back there with a boombox, walking around asking the teammates how they're enjoying themselves, if they're relaxed, how they're doing. It's just awesome, see those you want to see that from your leaders on the team. So he seems like an awesome guy to be around. Would have loved to have him on here today. Would have had some great questions for him as well.
Maybe if y'all go live later, I'll be with G. Maybe he'll hop on.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. I asked PJ Locke this question when he was on. I asked him, if there was one guy, if there's one guy on the team, that you would love to go out to a party with, and there was one guy that you wouldn't, go out to a party with and have fun with, and the guy that he said he wouldn't was Garett Bolles, and he was like, "Look, man," he was like, "I'll just tell you, Garett. He said,
I actually have
Garett. Yeah, you have the clip.
I actually have that clip right here. I'll roll it right now.
I got a little fun question for you too. Which player on the team would you love to go out party with, to the club with, and which player would you never go out with? Which player would you never go out and try to have fun with?
Garett Bolles. That's my first one. It'll be my first one. Bolles, I can't go there with you, dog. I love you to death, Bolles, but nah, I can't do it. Can't be seen with you. But
PJ's a clown, man. That boy is a clown.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, he was telling us a lot, bro. PJ is such a chill dude. He honestly one of my favorite guests I've had on the show. He's really cool and really honest.
Yeah, he's a chill dude, man. He is. So now the question falls on me, right? Who would I go to the club with? And who would I not go to the club with? I'm not going to the club with. It's just players? Yeah, just players?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, I'm not going. I'd probably go. I would go to the club with. I would go to the club with Draymond Jones. Obviously, I'm saying if it didn't have to be Garett, because I would, that's my dog or whatever. But I'm saying outside of that, I'll probably go with Dre, because Dre is actually hilarious. He's low key funny. Makes a lot of those low key comments that are hilarious. And I would love to go out and see just what he's like outside, because he's just a funny dude, and I think he's pretty his experience with life is very authentic. So I feel like that would be a fun place to experience him and his kind of goofy self. I would probably go out with Dre. Dre would be a good dude to go out with.
The stuff that he'd be retweeting and liking on Twitter is it's not even.
Yeah, he's a fiend. He's a fiend on Twitter, bro. He's a real demon on Twitter. Who would I not go to the club with? I'm probably not gonna go to the club with Russ, honestly, because I feel like Russ is gonna be. He's gonna bring his iPad. He's gonna bring his film. Russ going to the club to study film and get ready for the game. He's not going to the club to get lit.
That's great.
I would probably not go with Russ. And Russ would probably convince me not to go to the club and go home and film study and get my body right. That's probably what he would do.
Yeah, that's funny, man.
Yeah, so that's it for today. Super excited having you on today, man. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy, training and whatnot, getting ready for these off-season training activities and everything that's coming up. Hope you stay in Denver here, man.
Yeah, really.
You scared me a little bit when you're saying it was good while it lasted with Garett Bolles. I'm hoping there's more coming, man. I'm hoping there's more coming.
Yeah, there could be, man. Like I said, I'm not ruling it out. It'll be, you guys know how it is though. Off season, free agency, all that is volatile. Sure. So we'll see. But either way, I'm excited about the future, and I love Denver regardless.
Yeah. Really hope to have you back here. But regardless, I do, hope you get the best opportunity that presents itself in front of you, and, get your opportunity to showcase your talent and your skill and show to these coaches what you can do as a starter week in and week out. So hope the best for you in your future. And thanks for taking time out of your day to hop on here, man. For real.
Appreciate it, man. Love the podcast, man. Y'all keep it up. It's awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, hopefully, I'm out there one day covering you on the Broncos.
You go.
That's kind of my dream, and it would be awesome to be able to do that. And like I said, keep killing it, man. Keep silencing the doubters.
Yep.
Really awesome that you carry that brand and kind of mindset with you. It's inspiring to a lot of people. You got tackles, I'm sure, out there who's seen what you're doing and want to model their game after you. I'm sure these guys. I'm sure they see you out there doing what being through the same stuff that you went through. So I think it's really inspiring what you're doing to the generations that are coming up. Yeah, thanks for coming on today, man. Hope you have a good rest of your day with training and everything. If you guys are listening to YouTube, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure to follow over there and have notifications on so you don't miss any of these episodes with Broncos players, insiders, and journalists. Free agency kicks off tomorrow, so we are going to be having plenty of coverage going over who the Broncos are signing, who they should sign, all the wave 1, wave 2, wave 3 of free agency, who they should pick up. Super excited to get all that out for you guys. This is your host, Amir, with my coach, Jordan. Today's guest, Calvin Anderson. To the next one. Peace.